You have to go trim the parking deck.
The time is
Trim
6:30.
the parking deck.
Yeah, definitely have to trim the
It's really
I will
interesting.
call this August 14th, 2017 work session of the mayor and council of the city of Snellville, Georgia to order. First on the agenda is regular business and public hearing agenda items. Does anyone have anything they want to discuss on the agenda, on the public hearing and regular business agenda? No? Everybody's good?
Yeah.
The pictures kind of tell the story on the nuisance action.
Every picture tells a story.
Yep. Okay, then we don't have that. We'll go to correspondence. Do we have any correspondence to review?
Not for me.
I did an executive session from the city attorney's report tonight. It's both litigation matters, it's all of them, Mayor. It's litigation matters, it's real estate and personnel.
Right. I anticipating a long exec session, so we're gonna try and get through the work session thoroughly but quickly, and then hopefully we can get all of the exec session in before the meeting. However, we have a lot to discuss, and we may have to come back after, we'll just see where we go. We may have to come back after the regular meeting. We'll see where we go. Okay, so the attorney's report, got that, discussion items. The presentation discussion of the audio-video proposal we have put off, item A, because of everything that we have on the agenda tonight and executive.
They will come back on the 28th.
They'll be here on the 28th. Okay. Discussion on lease of 2385 Flower Street, Suite B by DDA for Business Development Pilot Program, Emmanuel.
I think I will defer to Mr. Scott.
This is, go ahead. I just know that this is a lease proposal from the DDA that I think is can be a topic for executive session.
Yeah, and I don't know if you want to address anything now or wait for the executive session. Okay.
I think there is one.
I did want to talk a little bit, because we've had some confusion, some background confusion on the subject matter. And we got, the city attorney's office got involved in it early on with regard to the subject matter of can we lease property without charging rent? And how would we compose that process? And it triggered two things that I wanted, just to put everybody sort of on the same page about. Anytime that situation is occurring, it can be done, and the example that I use for that is the Aurora Theater in Lawrenceville is under an agreement, but it doesn't actually pay rent for the building that they use, which is a public building. And the exchange of consideration in that is the services that are provided under the agreement. And it's substantial. I mean, instead of hiring a company to come in and operate that building, we work out an arrangement to make an exchange. And we did it in a very public kind of communication with very precise terms on it. And so anytime you're doing something with public property like that, where you're creating that, then you've got to be very careful to scrutinize the transaction. Y'all will all of you have been around for a little while will remember that the Chamber of Commerce in Gwinnett County is actually owns some public property, and they did that in sort of a similar way and had to go back and justify that after the fact that it got to be controversial. So in every instance, the city council and the DDA are under that scrutiny, and so it was just something that needed to be raised, and that's one issue in the consideration. The second issue is in relationship with DDA and city council with regard to the properties that have been acquired by the city and then put in the hands of the DDA. There's an IGA in every instance, and that IGA really governs that there's a two-step process in everything. So when it comes to us, like this one did, we immediately put it on council's agenda with the staff recommendation in terms of the agreement, which is what the agenda item is. And the whole concept is that it's not approved until both entities actually take action on it under the IGA. And so it's in the normal course. That's how it got to this body tonight. The other thing is the open meetings Act does list leasing real property as an exception, which is the reason when you're negotiating that kind of thing and discussing it, it becomes important to keep those terms while they're in the negotiating stages confidential. So that's why we take it into that. But that's sort of the whole perspective, is that it's just getting on the table of the council for the first time tonight for consideration.
Very much like Baker's Rock and the horse farm over there. Don't we lease that piece of property to those folks for like $1 a year?
And
And then they assume all of the repair responsibility, utilities and all that stuff, is that?
And I don't remember every term of that lease agreement, but what I remember about Baker's Rock is there's so much of it that you can't use, and so many restrictions that have to do with it. It's not really a value. There's a component of there that's hard to decide what to do.
No, I'm just saying the fact that it's city-owned property that somebody's using for nothing, basically.
And there was a long presentation, and what I remember is a nonprofit that actually does care for underprivileged. I mean, there was a real exchange, a real public interest in making that exchange of a service that is municipal, at least in its foundation.
So it's not unprecedented that a city piece can be done.
It's not at all.
Right.
It's just getting it in the right framework and getting the consideration.
You just have to have that agreement.
And you want to
Everybody
put
needs to
it
be
on the
clear.
record so that if anybody, you don't justify it after the fact when somebody questions it. It's on the record before it, and everybody understands what the consideration is.
Any other questions on that? Nuisance action against 2783 Ashworth Circle. Christie.
If you've looked at the pictures, I think they pretty much speak for themselves in the agenda packet. And since this happens to be in my backyard, basically, I went ahead and walked the property yesterday. Most of the large debris has been removed from the outside, but it's still a mess, certainly. So definitely needs to be acted upon.
Any further discussion on that? Okey-doke.
We need to,
We're gonna, it's on the, isn't it on our
It's on
agenda?
the new business, isn't
That's
it?
under
It's under new
so we're
business.
good.
All right.
Ongoing projects, sir.
Okay, we'll hit the
Again,
high
I've
points
asked, Butch just hit the high points, so we can.
We do need an executive session for town center working plan. We have received input from the county on what they need in an RFP. So that process, we should have it turned around and back to them this week. We'll let Tony review it also. The Public Relations Marketing Town Center, Brian is working with Gay, who's not here this evening, on updating our stormwater brochure. That's part of our mandate that we have to do every year. It's been quite a while since we've updated that. So hopefully do that, something like the recycling brochure that we have, make it interesting. Unified Development Ordinance. TSW is working on a calendar to complete. We should have that in a couple of days, I would think. Caleb's putting that together, so we'll get that out to mayor and council as soon as that's received. Roundabout construction, I do have that's an executive session topic. We're making progress though. 78-124, we did have a pre-con meeting that we attended last week in Athens, which was poor, to say the least. Basically, the only information we got from Pittman, even though they were very open and friendly communication-wise, they did say they would start sometime after Labor Day. I followed up with them again. They do not have a superintendent assigned to this job yet. I talked to the vice president of the company that was there, who obviously has never built a road before. And, so we're getting a couple other contacts there. And we'll follow up with that. They did say that, they understand our concerns about traffic flow, detours, no problem as far as participating in a Facebook Live session or getting him on social media. They were very positive about that. We talked to the DOT construction engineer who was there, and we got him to agree to bi-weekly progress meetings with the contractor and DOT. So we made some progress, but it was after the meeting when we could corner everybody. I feel like the Arts Commission is back on track. The final appointments are on the agenda for tonight. I do think we need a future discussion regarding their level of independence. They want to do some things that maybe they can do better as an independent 501c3, and so we'll talk more about that.
When are we gonna talk more about it?
What's that?
When are we gonna talk more about it?
Well, I need to sit down with Chris, because
Okay.
she'd mentioned a couple of things that they want to do. We'll keep it on the agenda.
Okay.
Even though I feel like the rewind's complete. And finally, on the SPLOST program, I've met with DOT and the recreation folks. They're working on agreements for specific projects where they'll have us something in writing that we can sign off on. Hopefully, that's about it.
Okay. Discussion of town center branding and marketing. We had that meeting last week, and I asked y'all to give us some consideration. Has anyone got anything there ready to talk about? Or do we have to schedule another meeting? Oh, it looks like you did some homework.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So for the parking garage stuff, I didn't know if that was, since it's property, is that exempt or does that matter?
No.
No, okay. So the first image, I handed out a bunch of copies, but the first image is basically kind of like it costs more to do this because it's basically a brick facade on what you see in the second page, which is the cheaper alternative on the bottom. Because I was basically thinking of cost-effective ways to get one done, but not having just an ugly thing, basically, at the end. But the brick stuff, it seems to be like a lot of people do that, but it costs way more than some of these alternatives I've seen. On the third page, you'll see one that was done in Miami. It's on the third and fourth page. And that one's like, it's full greenery. But it gives you an example of what could be done on the upper image, where it's basically a live green wall. Where it's basically greenery that's living and it's on the wall, and it's this system that they put in place. And it basically it's adding more greenery instead of just this big cement square thing. And then on the following page, you'll see another one. That was also in Miami. But this one, they actually lifted the last floor higher because they use it as a, not just parking garage, but as a venue for events. And you'll see kind of like people seated in the next picture of when they do events with it. And that one they use, I think it was glass going around the top, or it was wires or something. But it's something that's more contemporary architecture instead of just all cement. But it also still looks kind of beautiful and stuff, I think. And then the last one is, second to last is artists basically painting the facade to make it look a lot better than it is. But I was thinking with that, we can possibly do something that is along the lines of where local artists do stuff on the building itself from Snellville, people from Snellville basically, and not anything like what's on all the cut-off heads or whatever on the.
That's the first thing,
No.
first thing
Like,
everybody's
they would have
gonna
to
think
definitely be
about.
over
We can put the
site on
heads
the
over on
arts
this.
Thank you.
committee, because that's not at all what I'm
We
aiming
gotta
at.
mix and match, you know.
And I was looking at the plans of what it possibly will look like once the garage is built with the library. But I know some of the development around there would depend on private sector and not so much public sector. So I was still kind of iffy about what parts will be exposed and what parts will be covered up by public sector development, basically. So that will depend on whichever parts are exposed, what we do. Because I know one side is probably going to be all exposed. And for that, I was thinking something like the green wall or greenery. And then for the other parts that are slightly exposed or not, we can probably do something like the local artists do stuff on the work or something like that, and something along those lines. And then the last was just parking. I thought that was pretty smart parking, where they basically, because a lot of parking garages will have it to where you do a 90-degree turn into your spot. All they did was slant it, so you just go right in and go back out, which is a lot more efficient, I think, trying to back out and go in. It's just a. And then the last, or the second to last picture, that one was just ideas, but I don't know if that would really be feasible. But basically, it turned the last floor into a park. So from the aerial view, it's a park up there. But I don't know if that would be that feasible or cost effective, but that was just ideas in there that I was thinking of.
Oh,
But the one I was kind of thinking, leaning more on, is basically the cheap one, but it has the last floor built up higher, so it's a mixture of events and parking, and where it's added with the greenery and a mix of the painting or whatever. But these are just some ideas throwing out there to see from our last meeting that we had on what we wanted to basically be the aesthetics of the, since it's gonna set precedents for the future of what the development is gonna be like. And just seeing if y'all had ideas of your own, or.
Well, and thank you for putting this together, this is excellent. It verifies what we discussed at our last meeting, in that if we're gonna have a theme, we need to decide what that is, because you can't
Yeah.
get to this stage unless you
Yeah,
know what your,
yeah.
what your theme's gonna be, okay? Now, those of you that I've spoken with, what I hear over and over is the English theme,
Yeah.
the New London and Camelot. Barbara likes Camelot, and quite honestly,
Kind of joking.
it's.
I spun New London to the kids.
And what,
Did
and what was
it,
their
they
thought?
thought it was kind of cool,
New London was?
actually. I mentioned the historical piece and
Uh-huh.
naming Snellville, and, you know,
Yeah, New
they
London
thought
is
it was.
New London at Snellville.
Yeah, I think we need the at there.
New
Oh,
London
yeah,
and
yeah,
Snellville.
that, to keep with, the other things at.
And that was
Um,
up from the high school kids.
Oh, that's good to know. That's very good to know. Anything else on that, on the theme, and what that's gonna look, what that looks like, or?
Do you have to water these?
Yeah, those, it's a living wall. It's basically like a thick
Creepy.
container about this thick that goes on there, and it's built onto the structure, and then it's basically a living structure at that point. And then they do different designs and stuff.
Well, here you'd have
not
to
just
do probably ivy, because nothing else.
Yeah.
a lot of
They have
stuff
some where
wouldn't
they run
survive.
wires up and down, and then they let it grow, and then it eventually becomes a big ivy thing. But there's like tons when you start looking into it.
It's kind of cool because
So
it's
that was-
Wrigley Field-like.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, brick and-
But we
That was
support
like
that.
way more, like when you look at the cost of it, versus getting a whole brick facade and the whole, that is so much more.
Is everybody in agreement that we're going towards an English theme then, either the New London or Camelot or something like that? Is everybody in agreement? Bobby?
I'm good with that.
I'm still undecided.
Okay.
I'm not,
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
Roger?
I'm fine with that.
Huh?
I'm fine
Okay.
with that.
All right, then let's schedule, then now we know that that's what we're going for. Now, what we all need to do is come up with what we think that looks like. So let's go to the next level, is now, you know it's gonna be an English theme. What does that mean to you, and what does that look like? And let's have a meeting again to discuss what that looks like, and what architectural pieces we absolutely want in there to sell to associate with the New London, okay? So if we can do that next week, one day next week, what's good for you? David will be out of town.
I will too.
You'll be out of town, okay, then that's maybe too many people missing.
I'm just remember, in talking to developers, yes, the name, the direction we're headed, like I'll put this in the design RFP for the library and the parking deck. And I'll include some of these photos. But you know, y'all will be involved in the interview process and talking to people, kind of fleshing that out. But when it comes to developers, it's going to be very difficult for us to say this is exactly what we want. You know, that they're gonna need a little more leeway than that in talking to these folks. I think we do need to have another meeting and, you know, delve into it a little bit more, but we aren't gonna be able to be the, you know, the construction foreman on the job, if you will. I mean, we can provide an overview, but it's gonna be very difficult to say, it's gotta look like this.
I agree, and I don't think we want to nail it down that close. However, we have several moving parts. One developer's not gonna be developing this whole thing. You've got the library now, it's gonna be one developer, then if you got if we would do the post office thing, or if we do something else downtown, that could possibly be another developer. I think that we should at least have some sort of an idea so what, they all tie in together. My concern is that if we don't have a theme, that, you know, one piece looks modern and the next piece looks like it's part of the city hall.
I'm with you.
One of the things that we did, albeit very quickly, when Snell was here, Mr. Snell was here, he gathered up a rendering. And, you know, I think void of rendering of those components that you can actually kind of see, to me would be a consideration and an investment we should probably make ahead of, I mean, how many times have you put paint on the wall and it didn't look the same way you thought it would when you painted it? So,
A little bit different than
Well,
deciding what you
but-
want
but,
architectural.
But a lot of the architectural stuff we passed in the town center, so
The
it's
material,
gonna be,
The material you passed.
well, but we also have pictures in there of styles and things we like, not that everything had to be built exactly like that.
And none of that was English, none of that we
Yeah,
put in there.
Well, I know. Well, then
here
We might
here-
need to update that
That's
then.
what- I'm
Well,
saying.
the things we passed, when you look at it as a whole, it's basically like a lot of these downtowns in other
Right.
cities.
Right.
And I don't want that, so, like, I voted for it because it makes it, basically pushes Snellville in a, I would say, more broad direction where you can use more materials than you used to before, and before it was just kind of brick and other stuff, but now you have options of stuff. But to me, since this is a public thing, the library and the garage, that's definitely, we should have all the say, because this is work for a developer. Like, if they don't want the work, okay, we'll go find someone who wants the work. And it's gonna be a central piece, so me, I don't really have, I'm not so much giving a lot of room, because I know with developers, not all of them, but I've seen where if they have the leg room and they do what they want, it's not gonna be,
It's not what they
English,
want.
it's not gonna be-
It's working together, definitely. And I think this next meeting, it'd be good to have Caleb and Bill here. Kind of flesh out your desired theme and how it fits with the practical.
And I think we need to let them know that, you know, we picked this
Yeah.
London, you know, or English theme, and let's just see what they can, get them to the meeting then, that'll satisfy, they'll bring some ideas that we can look at, and we'll make some progress.
I think that would
You know, you may not think we made progress, but right now, we know which direction we're going. We didn't know that 2 weeks ago. We had no clue what we were gonna do at the town center, except that we were gonna build a library and everything. We had no direction to what we wanted to look like. At least now, we have a theme, now we have something to work with, and I think we can just keep bringing it down to what's feasible, what's economically feasible, what's aesthetically desirable, and put it all together and come up with a package that gives the developer leeway, by the same token, falls into what we all think we should have in the town center.
And if you went to England and drove around, you would not see everything looking identical.
Exactly right, England's very
A whole wide
diverse.
range of options.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, just because you say England, that doesn't mean that everything's black and whites or castle. You know, there's a lot of different architecture in England.
but we agree though, we should probably see something that's maybe not to scale, but some renderings of what something potentially could look like in that regard. Is that,
oh, definitely.
does anybody
Like, I wouldn't vote for
not
something
think
if I
that?
didn't see what the.
That's what we just
rendering
said.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, okay.
Think we bring them in and.
Yeah, bring them in. Now, I don't think that the first meeting, you're gonna have a rendering of what the town center's gonna look like.
No, we got a
But I
lot
think,
more
but they
fleshing
can
out.
give you
Yeah.
renderings of what different building
I
styles and
think
things
if we
like
do,
that.
we're gonna be extremely lucky or terribly disappointed.
Just to warm everybody up to this process just a little bit and give you comfort. There's the process of developer that comes in, and the developer really cares about what the market wants. And he's gonna be guided strictly by what your Tennille Spangler wash is approved. Market's gonna want something different from what he can permit as a matter of right. And so he's gonna come back before you. And the reason I want to tell the story is because there's a sense of conflict when that comes to you, because here is your town center project, but it's a zoning that somebody else is bringing before you. Well, you'll see rendering, you'll get all, in the zoning process, because they want density and change to fit the marketplace, all the renderings come, they need exceptions and variances, and so you look at it once when you tell them we want it to be, English in architecture, and then you see it again when they want their variances. They are very accommodating in getting you renderings and reasons to give them density. So there's two checks in that process.
Okay, so then, let's set that. We can do one of two things. We can either set an earlier work session for the, what is the date on that?
28th.
28th, or we can set up another day that week.
I would rather do another day
I would
simply
rather do
because
another day as
we've got a
well.
bunch of first reads, so we're gonna have a
Well,
lot of.
that'll be a long
zones.
meeting, yeah.
Simon,
Okay, then how about
Wednesday?
Wednesday of that week? Is that good with everybody?
30th. 30?
Well, it's fine with me.
Sure.
I'll check with them.
Okay, so let's figure either that Wednesday or Thursday, and we'll see when we can get them
Sure.
to come in. Okay? Good. Anyone else, anything else they want to discuss before we go into exec session? Council? Nope. Okay. During the work session of the mayor and city council of Snellville, Georgia, Mayor Witz announced that certain matters should be discussed in a closed session of the meeting and asked council to advise the city with respect to closing the meeting. City Attorney Tony Powell advised the city of the following reasons to close the meeting: to discuss pending and/or potential litigation, settlement claims, administrative proceedings, or other judicial actions which is exempt of the Open Meetings Act pursuant to OCGA Section